I'm just going to start the webinar, you guys.
Yes.
All right.
All right, I've got a stream.
Amy, just so you know, I pushed record, so this meeting is being recorded.
Good. Thank you.
Amy, do you want me to start it on the channel?
Yes, please.
All right, and I got to get it on Facebook too, so hold on a second.
Okay.
All right, that one's not going to work. Save. Activate. Apply. And let's go to force matrix.
Just until Joe is out. Just until Joe's out.
Okay.
Take action. Play stream. Live. Take. All right, we're going to be live on the channel for a second, and just give me a second to get Facebook going. So everybody just as if you're live. And whoever's host, if you want to put it in gallery view, just so we see that. Because we are live on the channel. And hold on one second for Facebook. Go live in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hold on, Facebook is just trying to decide. We are live on Facebook and on public access.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay, it is 7:04. This is the Swampscott Public Schools School Committee meeting, regular session. Wednesday, May 26th, 2021. This school committee and superintendent are in person. However, the public will be able to attend virtually, both on our public access channels as well as on Facebook, in accordance with the executive order issued by Governor Baker on March 12th, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. I call this meeting to order. We are not on YouTube tonight. There is a technical difficulty that is preventing that I understand will be cleared up by tomorrow, but because we are still being streamed on our public access channels and on YouTube, that we are in compliance. Our agenda says that we have the Pledge of Allegiance. I know we are back in person, but I'm going to wait until we are off of Zoom for visual reasons. And I'm going to move directly into community announcements. I am assuming that our student reps are not with us any longer. Is that true? Okay. That's correct. So Suzanne, I'm going to turn it to you first.
I wanted to say a big thank you to Amanda McCauley, our occupational nurse, because the vaccination clinic that was offered on Friday was unbelievable. It was so exciting to see so many students and some of their families come in to get vaccinated. And I think she just did a great job. It ran really smoothly. And I don't know what the final count was, but I think it was over 230 people. So that was awesome. So thank you to her. And I know Mrs. Hartman was there and Mrs. Silly was there volunteering as well. So that was great. That's it.
All right, Ms. Marshall.
I don't have much. I think like everyone else, we're just excited for the end of the year. And I know we're going to have a graduation, and I have an 8th grader who will be moving on. So just looking forward to that. That's all.
Mr. Jantis?
Thanks, Amy. Nothing specific. I think echoing some of the same things that have been said, looking forward to the end of the year and hopefully back to more sense of normalcy as we move forward. So that's it, Amy. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Pastor?
Echo what everyone says, and just congratulations to the Big Blue women on a big part of our victory. Congratulations to them. And I also know that everyone is very excited about the upcoming single graduation. And thank you to everyone involved with that. I'm sure it's going to be a great event. And Suzanne, that's all I have.
It was no offense taken. You can hear, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I also, in addition to what Suzanne and Glenn have reported on, I just want to say a special thank you to the men and women who are cleaning our buildings. I have been volunteering at the elementary schools for the last few weeks during lunchtime, and like the amount of effort that goes into switching over these rooms for 4 lunches throughout the day and 4 very messy lunches in particular. They are nonstop, including digging through the trash to find a rock that one of the kids threw away. They're much nicer than I, because they dug through that trash to find it. So a special shout out to them, because I know that they have been working really hard during the pandemic. And even though the level of disinfection has changed throughout the year, their jobs have proceeded to, they are still working hard, and I really appreciate it. I will say I was a little disappointed to not see the Powder Puff results on Twitter or on social media, apart from what the kids reported, because I think that's a big deal, especially for morale and for the kids. And
I agree.
They were routed. So congratulations to those young women. That's it. So with that, Superintendent, I'm going to go straight to you for your update.
Thank you. I'm going to go into my superintendent's report. If I could have permission to share my screen. I didn't pull it up. I'm not sure why. I should have been prepared.
I'm making you a host right now, Pam.
Thank you.
So now you're the host. So share
Oh
with Martha.
boy. All right, let's see. Sorry about the delay. I should have. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Here we go. So my first item on my agenda is what you have already shouted out. A huge thank you to our occupational health nurse, Amanda Mulcahy, for her efforts in coordinating the vaccine clinic. Another thank you to our school nurses for being there to assist our students and families. Definitely paying attention to their social emotional well-being. Some kids were fearful of the shot. And I know that more of our school nurses are able to attend the June 11th, the second vaccination clinic. And then a final shout out to some of our volunteers, including our own school committee members, Suzanne Wright, Amy O'Connor, and Select Board Chair Peter Spelios for volunteering their time. I know you can attest to how busy it was and the fact that you didn't have much time to breathe. You were put straight to work. There were 285 individuals signed up for the clinic, but we also know that people were looking to get their shots as quickly as possible. So if they were able to get it someplace else, they would do so. But we did vaccinate 246 individuals. And just a reminder that the second clinic is being held on June 11th. And as I was just saying in a personal conversation, Mrs. Mulcahy has already had some ideas about streamlining the entry and exit process for the June 11th clinic, and we're excited to have that as well. It was a well-oiled machine for the first time that we have held a clinic like that. Next update for the school committee is our Director of Human Resources position. We have formed an interview committee and we'll begin our first round of interviews next Wednesday, June 2nd. Ms. Seibert is currently conducting phone screens for candidates, and the interview committee, the first round of interviews, the committee members include our Director of Finance, Ms. Seibert, our Town Director of Finance, Ms. Saro, and our Occupational Health Nurse, Mrs. Mulcahy, and myself. Mrs. Mulcahy has attended several professional development opportunities, and through her sessions, we've learned how closely tied occupational health nurse and director of human resources positions are. And so having her a part of that, she's learned a lot in this last year and brings a different perspective to the interviews. And I'm looking forward to having her on that committee. And then when we reduce the number of candidates to final round, we'll also be including our town administrator, Sean Fitzgerald. There may be one or two others that are included in that committee as well, but we do have them interviews scheduled for next Wednesday and Thursday. Mrs. O'Connor, you're looking at me like you have a question. Okay. I know. Okay. There was some feedback at town meeting about the fact that in my town meeting update, I did not address learning loss and how we would be addressing it here in our district. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that on Monday, DESE posted a Summer Acceleration Academy grant that, which is great, but that grant is really targeted to an academy week. And they suggest it be in late August before the students return. What I wanted to explain to the committee and highlight to the committee is the fact that we are offering a summer program to address learning loss program, and it actually is running 6 weeks, 4 hours a day from July 5th till August 13th. It will serve students grades 1 through 12. Students are being invited currently who would benefit from summer learning to enter the next grade level fully prepared. If we don't fill the available 200 seats, it will be an open program to all families seeking summer enrichment opportunities for their students. The program is project-based, which will provide students with the opportunity to learn through high-interest projects while receiving small bursts of just-in-time academic instruction in reading, writing, and math. High school students will be able to recover missing credits or earn additional semesters worth of credits towards graduation, and the program is free to all Swampscott families. And this program is being led by Dr. Bacon. It is in addition to our extended school year program, which is something entirely different, led by Assistant Superintendent Mrs. Raymond. So we have a more robust, in my opinion, learning loss program, summer program, than what DESE is offering with that 1 week. So we're really excited. I would love for parents of students have been invited to accept the invitation. And if not, 200 seats is a lot of seats to be able to fill, and it will be open to the entire district. So I just felt it was important to share with the committee that we are addressing learning loss through our own program.
She unmute.
I know, I can't hear you. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Okay. What happens to the students who have been encouraged to attend and choose not to?
They'll be on our radar for the fall. I don't know, Dr. Bacon, if you are taking that a step further, but they're not going to fall off our radar and maybe addressed in a different way. That's pretty much it. They're still going to be on our radar, whether they're here for the summer or they're here for September. We'll have to come up with creative ways to fill in those gaps. I mean, this learning loss work is not going to be over in one summer. It's not going to be over in one school year. It's going to be a couple of years, 2 to 3 years, and we all accept that.
And is this paid for with the ESSER grants?
Yes. So the grant money that came through for the Summer Acceleration Academy grant was going to be a nominal amount of money. This way, we can pay it through the ESSER money. Mr. Giantis?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just a couple of questions on this. So it says, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little echo. It says that the students are going to be able to recover credit and actually put it towards graduation as well. Are they getting graded? Is this going to factor into their overall grade point average, or is this just a standalone thing for the summer?
That's a good question. I will throw that to Dr. Bacon.
What I've talked about with the high school administration is a pass-fail basis for the summer program.
And if I can ask, just going back to the previous section, the Director of Human Resources, is there an approximate target date you're looking at to fill this?
As soon as possible. That's my target date, in all honesty.
Okay.
As soon as we get through that first round, I want to jump into the second round. I'd like to have it in place. It would be wonderful early July. So we're trying to get through it. Even July 1 would be a great target. That would be our goal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pastor?
2 questions. One, do you anticipate both Superintendent Angelakis and Dr. Bacon, do you think that will fill 200 seats?
Based on the way things are going now, I don't necessarily think we'll fill all 200 seats with students who have been invited because of their academic need. So I do
Right.
anticipate that we'll be opening it up to all families within about a week or so.
Great. And then can I actually just ask another question regarding what was brought up about the position, the human resource position? How was the response to the advertisement? Were you pleased with that?
There was a substantial amount of applicants.
Great. That's awesome. That's great to hear. Great. Thank you.
Mrs. O'Connor?
It's probably early in the game to know this, but will students be able to opt into any of that learning for shorter amounts of time, or is it you're in for the summer or not? I'm just wondering, like, if somebody had a week free, would
Yeah.
that?
So it's a 6-week program, and in the application, we've made it clear that if you have a pre-planned family vacation for a week during that time, that's fine, and we're just asking you to specify when you enrolled which week you're going to be away. I have been contacted by some other families that have more time that the student can't be there for a variety of reasons, families out of the country, students having surgery, other things. And those were making decisions on a case-by-case basis. But our general feeling is that it's better to be there for some of the time than not at all. So we're trying to be very generous in accommodating families whose students have an academic need.
Mrs. Raymond?
I just wanted to share that typically our summer program for students with disabilities is incredibly specific to the IEP in terms of how much services we offer. So for example, many students might have on their service delivery grid 2x45, so 2 times a week for 45 minutes for reading services. This year we're offering 5 times a week. So they can come 5 times a week for 5 weeks. And we've done that across the board for almost every student who was offered extended school year services. And that really is to take a look at the learning loss and missed learning opportunities that did occur with the pandemic.
Thank you. I also, one final item that's not on my written report, I do want to shout out to Dr. Bacon, Chris Norkin, our Dean of Students at the high school, and Debbie Arden, a literacy specialist over at Hadley School. They actually presented on a webinar for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. There were 100 attendees. I attended as well. They were presenting on the district's attention to learning loss. And I think they did a wonderful job. And I just think the committee needs to recognize for them to be part of a DESE presentation is pretty special. So congratulations on a job well done, Dr. Bacon and your team. And I know there was some great feedback and connections. There was a resident of our town who is an assistant now I can't remember, I was going to say an assistant principal, but somebody who's in administration and really wants to sit down with Dr. Bacon and have another conversation and really network, because their district, and I believe it was Watertown, uses iReady and Ames Web as well. So a real shout out. It was a great presentation. And as I said, when I was on, there were 100 attendees, and that's impressive to have our team present. Congratulations.
Superintendent, can you talk a little bit about that presentation and just a little bit more about what it?
I'll throw it to Dr. Bacon on this one.
The presentation was part of a larger presentation. The other part was done by people working for DESE on program assessment and program evaluation, and how you know if your programs are working. And we were asked to present based on the work we have done through this school year to try to address the learning loss that I reported to you last September based on our data. So over the course of the year, we identified that learning loss early on. We put in place 4 different kinds of interventions or programs to help address that. We tracked how each one was doing in terms of really catching students up. And that are what I reported on, and with Mr. Norkin and Miss Arden, is sort of how we went through that process, how we selected and analyzed our data, the lessons we learned from that process, and how we can apply some of the new tools that DESE is coming out with in terms of program evaluation and assessment.
Sorry, thank you. All right, next we have Ms. Seibert, our Director of Finance, to discuss the grants.
Great, if you can make me a co-host so I can share my screen, that'd be great.
I did. You are a
Oh,
co-host.
perfect. Thank you. Where's share screen? Okay. Can everyone see that okay? Great. All right, so thank you for this opportunity to give you an update on our federal and state grants that are related to the pandemic. I just wanted to start with just kind of an overview that school committee does review and approve all budgets and allocate finances at the cost center level. And that includes other sources of revenue. It's not just the operating budget. So federal grants, state grants, they do technically fall under the purview of budgets in the school committee. While we don't necessarily have a specific vote for that, because oftentimes they were baked into the budget. So you may recall I bake in the offsets for our revolving fund support for the budget. So in essence, you are approving the other sources of money. And that was presented at the February 10th budget presentation on grants and revolving funds. The superintendent and her administration continue to develop plans for the coming year and have recommendations on how the pandemic funds can be used to support students and the operations of the district. And tonight's presentation is really just to give you an update on how funds have been spent and give a little look into the future as far as the ESSER funds go. And this is important because many districts are going to use these funds to for some general fund things, which we've already established that we were when we were asked to cut $180,000 out of our operating budget. We let the town know that we were not going to be able to do that, that we were going to supplement using ESSER funds, which we did. And it's a whole lot of money, so people are going to be looking at it. This is a sequencing for the state money. So over the next 3.5 years, this is the amount of money that the state is sending out to towns and school districts. So the state coronavirus fund, that's a very small one. Our allocation was about $83,000. That one expires on on June 30th. This graphic was really helpful to kind of look at when things are expiring. And so this is on the state level, but I'll show you, I'll go to the next one, which is ours. And I apologize, I have a typo in the sequencing. It's actually 2.89 million. So not 2.19 million, it's 2.8 million years amount funds over the next 3.5 years. So our remote learning grant was $57,000. This was This was one that was a surprise to us. I had talked to the superintendent about it when it came up, and it was one of those ones, it wasn't an entitlement grant, it was one you had to apply for. And given our luck with other grants, I wasn't very optimistic that we would get anything, and I was pleasantly surprised that we get $57,000, and that helped purchase quite a few iPads. So I was very pleased with that one. I've talked a little bit about the state coronavirus prevention grant. That one's $83,000. The big one was the CARES reopening grant. That was $473,000. That one has a shelf life until December 31st of this year. The ESSER 1 grant, which was the first, the baby ESSER grant that we received, that was extended until September 30th of 2022. The ESSER 2 grant, which is the big one that was signed in December by former President Trump, is $645,000. That one goes until September 30th of 2023. And then this larger one, the ESSER 3, which we did get the final allocation for earlier this week, it's 1.4 million. And that one goes until September 30th of 2024. And the workbook for that one was just released by DESE this week. And that's the one that we really have to have some thoughtful conversations and planning on how we're going to make that money last, because that needs to last for multiple years. So the remote learning, this was a matching grant. We used matching funds from the Town's CARES Act, the Town's CARES allocation. It was used to purchase 300 iPads for our pre-K to second grade students and teacher population. The total purchase cost was $115,000. $57,000 of it was on ours, and the balance was on the town's. And that grant is fully spent. And the state coronavirus prevention fund, which was that small $83,000 grant, we're using that to fund the occupational health nurse and the technology specialist. The first 4 months were funded by the Town CARES Fund. And the total salary for these two positions was $116,000. And this grant will have to be fully expended by June 30th of this year, and it will be. This was the big one. This one was the CARES grant, the reopening grant, where DESE gave us an allocation based on student enrollment. So it was a fixed dollar amount per student. And we do expect to fully expend this by June 30th. I know I mentioned earlier that the deadline for this one has been extended, but DESE is really, in all their communications to us, has really given us a sense of urgency to spend this by June 30th. They said this was to get schools reopened, not to save this for next year or future years. They really emphasized that they wanted this to be spent now. And we did spend it. We spent it on air purifiers. We spent it on COVID testing. We spent it on dividers and partitions. We spent it on some facilities things. We bought some sinks, some mobile sinks for some of our schools. A little bit on out-of-district tuition, a whole lot on technology. We bought tents for all the schools, which you can see when you're driving by. We used it for the transportation expense that we incurred by having to move Stanley grades 3 and 4 to the high school. And these funds, as I said, are available until December 31st, but we expect to have them fully spent by June 30th. ESSER 1, the baby ESSER, $149,000. We use this for after-school teaching and other stipend work. A lot of software subscriptions. I know Ms. Mackey-Knowles has presented to this committee about just the challenges and the amount of software that we had to buy and install by going to one-to-one. And that was significant, and having remote learning. So about $45,000 on software subscriptions. Supplies and materials, again, more technology. We purchased iPad carts with these funds. We do have approximately about $37,000 remaining as of earlier this month, and these funds are available until September of 2022. The ESSER 2, this is one that we've just started spending this. And it's going to fund the occupational health nurse. So the budget for this is to fund the occupational health nurse and the technology specialist, software licenses and subscriptions, the Endicott fellows, additional staffing, an adjustment counselor, and some teaching positions. We did just purchase picnic tables using this fund. And we were, as I presented to the school committee back in February, we are going to use this grant to supplement our technology. So we have purchased 95 MacBook Airs and another 200 Chromebooks. I've also expressed to the committee that the goal is to get that into the operating budget not to continue to use our grant money to buy technology. This money is really, I don't want to say it's not meant for that, because it's meant for whatever the needs are of the district, but I would really rather have a plan in place to figure out how we're going to fund technology replenishment and not be reliant on grants for that. And these funds are available until September 30th of 2023. And the big one, this one really, the use is to be determined. The grant workbook, when I typed this, it had not been released. That changed. Oops, sorry. Lily joined me, I'm sorry. All right, here we go. SO3, the grant book workbook was released. I think the due date for it is by the end of October. Jean and I will work on this one together. It was allocated based on Title I formula, and our allocation is $1,482,217, which is, as I shared with the superintendent, it was $85,000 more than what I estimated. So I was very happy about that. But we really do have to be careful and cautious and develop a district plan for the next 3.5 years. And we will do that with some collaboration with the superintendent and the other stakeholders in the district. And I would be remiss if I didn't really call out how the town's allocation for CARES money was used to really support the schools during this time. They helped us purchase over 1,000 Chromebooks. They helped support the HVAC maintenance and upgrades. This was an interesting one, and this is where I really appreciate my collaboration with my town counterparts, because as a result of our weekly meetings, I became aware that COVID testing was not FEMA reimbursable for school departments, but for towns it was. And we have such a high concentration of town residents that work in our school department. We went back through our lists and teased out those people and had them rebill us, give us 2 bills, one for non-resident school department employees and one for resident school department employees. And the town picked up the resident one because they could put in for FEMA reimbursable. And that meant we had the money to get to spend again, not just eat away at our money. So it really is a collaboration. They picked up the cost for the occupational health nurse and the technology specialist for the first 4 months on their grant. And very early on in the pandemic, I want to say March, April, when we were scurrying to get PPE supplies, they helped with the initial purchase of PPE. So overall, they gave us over $815,000 to help support the school department. So I think that really has to be noted, and I want to call it out here specifically. And that is it. It was a very brief overview. So I don't know if anyone has any questions for me.
John, why don't you go ahead?
So Martha, just a quick one. Is there anything else in the pipeline that you're anticipating, or is this pretty much what we expect going forward now?
I have not heard anything in the pipeline at this point. I don't know if anyone else has. What I have heard from various people at DESE, different DESE seminars that I've attended, is that sometimes when this much money comes from the federal government, things that come from the state may be altered. And I'll give an example, a very specific example. Our circuit breaker reimbursement is usually in the 70 to 75% range. And when there's this much money coming into the coffers of towns and school districts, that percentage may drop. So it may drop to 70% instead of 75%. So that's the other tail on really being cautious on how we plan and spend it.
Okay,
but I have not heard of another infusion. If to answer your question, I have not heard of infusion.
I have a couple of questions. The OH position, the occupational health nurse position, is being funded by the ESSER grants. It made sense, especially since it was not something that we planned for last year. Like technology, is that going to be something that we work to put into the budget for the long term, since it's not only COVID related?
I would imagine that was the plan, but I'll defer to the superintendent.
Yes, the benefits of this position are not just COVID related, and I can see this position morphing into more. So that is something that, along with the technology specialists, will have to be rolled into the operating budget. The reverberation, the echo is really hard.
I do have a few others. Where do we see the summer learning in these grants?
So right now, the summer learning is probably going to get charged to the ESSER 1 because I want to spend that one down first because that has the shelf life that's ending on the 22nd. But we also have a summer learning grant from the state that is not COVID related. It's just a grant that we might be able to use those funds on that. I'll have to confer with Dr. Bacon.
And when will we have a sense of what that's going to cost, the summer program?
I have not. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's actually in ESSER 2, and we set aside $141,000.
Is summer learning for 22 and 23 sort of you're anticipating it coming out of ESSER 3?
I mean, if we decide to continue with the summer learning program, we'll have to see how this summer goes and see if it's helpful and if it actually works for students and families. And if it does, and we want to continue it, I imagine that we'd be talking about that as something we'd want to fund out of ESSER 3.
I just want to jump in before, I know there are more questions, but I just want to encourage everybody to put your yourself on mute when you're not speaking so that there's a little bit less feedback here in the room. Martha?
I just was going to share, kind of piggyback on what Martha Seibert said about changes to circuit breaker. We already did have a major change that occurred during the pandemic. We were supposed to get reimbursement for transportation, and they pulled that back. It seems that they pulled that back again this year. So I do think Martha's right. With this influx of federal funds coming in, we may see hits to things that were promised prior to the pandemic.
Ms. Seibert, can you talk a little bit about you said that for the ESSER 3, that there has to, you're going to work on putting a plan in place to spend that money over time. What can we anticipate in terms of timing on that? I know it's going to evolve.
I think the first swing at it will probably be with the superintendent and her leadership team to try and identify some high-level priorities, and then I would imagine we'd involve building leadership, but I would defer to the superintendent on plan development along with Dr. Bacon and Mrs. Raymond.
I would say that's accurate.
Yeah, I just want to be able to kind of keep a running tab. And I know, Martha, you are great at keeping us updated. But this is going to be something over the long term. I would imagine that's going to need a lot of.
I imagine this is the first of many reports to the committee to keep them updated. And I've already been reporting quarterly on the CARES Act money that we have. This money doesn't come without a lot of management and oversight from the government. So,
Ms. Wright?
So speaking of oversight, if things like the circuit breaker and transportation are being underfunded, and we're using ESSER money to cover that, I mean, obviously it's a need, but are there some other limitations on this grant money that's going to not allow us to use that money?
Oh, no, and I would caution you, we are in a very fortunate position where we have a large amount of carry forward on our circuit breaker. So that gives us a lot of budget certainty in terms of planning and understanding where there may be some changes to reimbursement rates. But the use of these funds is very general, very broad. It's I don't know how else to say it other than it's to help us continue to move the district along. It's not just pandemic focused.
That's all I had.
Any other questions? No? Ms. Marshall, anything? No? Okay.
No, I probably will later, but processing.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one other thing that I wanted to let the committee know, that the bid document is out for before and after school care. We've had 12 vendors reach out and request the bid document. So proposals are due to us on June 6th or 7th, I believe. And we'll start evaluating proposals and have a recommendation for the committee by the June 26th meeting. Is that the late meeting in June? I'm trying to think of the dates. I know there's a June 9th meeting, and then I think the next one is the 23rd, maybe. I'll have to look at my calendar.
Ms. Wright?
Are we communicating to families that there definitely will be a before and after school program?
Yes,
Because-
we had a survey that we put out for our elementary schools and the middle schools, and we had over 300 respondents to it.
So people know, even though there's nothing in place right now, there would definitely will be childcare for them.
They know that we're working towards it. I can't imagine that we won't come to an agreement with a vendor. So we have not communicated out that it starts as of this date and any pricing or anything like that, because we don't have a vendor in place. But I think that they understand that we're working towards that. Yes.
And we're still committed to affordable.
Yes, that was made very clear in the bid document.
I just know there's a lot of people that have been asking, like, is this really going to happen? Do I have to find something else?
I would just chime in here that the building principals are including it in their newsletters to families. So it has been going home as a done deal and letting them know that it will be happening.
Thanks. That's really what I was asking. Thanks.
Right. All right, then. Thank you, Ms. Seibert. With that, I'm going to move into the chair update. We did have our tri-chair meeting last Friday. And the bulk of it was really talking about Max Casper came and spoke to us about facilities, about the continued work that he's doing. And I would imagine that the superintendent will have him come and update the broader group sometime over the summer.
I would say one of the June meetings, I would love
Okay.
him to come and talk about the summer projects that might be occurring, as well as the capital project of the roof, the middle school roof.
Yeah. And a fair amount of discussion over more updates to the kinds of things that you've been speaking about, Suzanne, about the school building committee and what's happening there. So tonight we have on the agenda the election of the chair and the vice chair, which took me a little bit by surprise. But as I mentioned the last time we met and took votes on the various committees, that, this is open for discussion at any time. However, I think at the last meeting, we talked about revisiting this in June. So this might be early, or it might be a time for somebody to pipe up or not.
How are you feeling, Amy? You okay to hang out?
Yeah, I feel okay. I feel okay. I think particularly as the chaos is settling down from the pandemic and we're starting to get back to normal. I do look forward to, we just met in just for the public's information, we just met in executive session to talk about goal setting for the committee and for the superintendent. So I look forward to kind of taking us through that over the next coming months. So we'll have an update in the fall. And you guys have been a great team in terms of jumping in when I need help.
I mean,
So
Suzanne, you're the vice, but I know how busy you are. So
You're on mute.
I'm happy to continue the job. I'm happy to pass it on to if there's someone else that wants to step up. But I think that to Amy's point, it feels like this was like a crazy year and it was so atypical. Like the job we did was, I mean, harder and easier in some regards. So, you know, I'm ready to keep going or not, but.
So I think what I'd like to do, rather than have everybody be put on the spot here, is just ask everybody to just think about it on your own. And if there's something that you want to talk about, let me know, and I'll make sure that it winds up on an upcoming agenda. That makes sense. I think I said this to you, John, at one point. I think one of the things that we've discovered over the last few years is how valuable it is for everybody on the committee to take a turn at being the chair, because I think it is really eye-opening to work with the superintendent, to see the level of what happens behind the scenes that the school committee is not privy to. And to gain a better understanding, and also identify what is our role and not our role. You know, as things start to normalize in not only the committee and the school district's lives, but also everybody's own personal lives, I just want to encourage everybody, when they have the opportunity, to step into the role to do it, because it's been a really meaningful part of my volunteerism here on the committee, in terms of understanding how this machine works. So think about that, please. Next up, we have our proposed school committee meeting dates. If everybody can open that up. We are, Ms. Karen has proposed a continuation of where we are now with our Wednesday meetings, with the presumption that that will work for everybody. I confess I did not check to see where this falls with the Selectmen's Wednesday meetings. There was a point where we were trading off, and then there was a point where we were happening at the same time. I will forward this to the select board, and just so that it's on their radar screen. In particular, I think where it bumps up against something is that tonight there is, at the select board meeting, we talked about this very generally last week. There is a conversation on race, racism, diversity and equity inclusion. I'm assuming that everybody was invited to that. John, Glenn, you were not? Okay. We were not? Okay, well, so in some ways that's good, because I said no for the whole school committee since we have our meeting tonight. But we have, in the spirit of being on the same page as our other town leadership, the superintendent and I are arranging for this woman, Tammy Fee. I'm sorry, her last name is escaping me right now, but she's a consultant that the town has been working with over the last year. I have asked her to come in and run the same program for not only the school committee, but also in conjunction with the superintendent's leadership team. So there are about 25 of us. And I have asked Ms. Karen to put that on our calendar sometime, probably in the next 3 months or so. I don't know much more about the program, other than it was something that the select board has endorsed, and I felt like it was something that was, I was disappointed that we were not in attendance there tonight, but I think that doing this in conjunction with the superintendent and her team will be an important thing for all of us, particularly as we go into goal setting seasons. So So in terms of the upcoming meetings, do I have, we don't need to take a vote on this, but in general, do we have a, should I give Ms. Karen the go-ahead to put these all in the calendar? Obviously, things can change as we move along.
Well, the only thing I would say is, given the conversation
Yeah,
a little while ago, is to take the July, what is it, July
the
14th.
14th, and
off of there?
replace it with a 26, 27, or 28 meeting.
Right, that should
Okay.
align.
Okay.
And then also that August 14th one, I think we were talking about maybe meeting earlier than that.
Okay, so just so
Are
that
we?
I just want to make sure that we get this right. So no July 14th meeting, but we will put in a meeting instead on the week of July 26th.
Was that a workshop or was that a regular meeting?
That was going to be a workshop,
Workshop.
a goal setting meeting. And then we talked about having a meeting the first week of August instead of the 14th, so that it happened before the leadership retreat.
So instead of the 11th.
So instead of whatever that, sorry, just,
Yeah, no August 11th.
Okay.
yeah, just do it the first week instead of that week.
Okay.
Those are summer dates that could be unique, but the rest
Yeah.
of them are pretty standard.
Mhm.
So no July 14th, no August 11th, and instead the dates that we, okay.
Yeah.
Let me just write this down so I have it. And Superintendent, the week of August, when we are going, the first week in August, when we're going to circle back to you after our workshop, I would assume that that's just with you so that we don't have to we could possibly do during the day as well.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right, next up, we have our subcommittees, and specifically a report from Ms. Wright on the school building committee.
I don't actually have anything to report that's different from last time. The schematic design submittal is in front of the MSBA right now. We had sort of a preliminary meeting with them, but it's they're reviewing it now. And you might have noticed in front of the school, there's some informational posters in front of Clark, Stanley, and Hadley that the school building committee created to inform public about the projects. Hopefully those will stay at the school for a week and then start moving around town, so other people get a chance to look at them. But that's about it for right now.
I did see the superintendent of Clark tweeted out some images of that, and as well as some information. So good for people who aren't actually doing pickup.
The principal, Mrs. Shea.
Did I say,
Right.
what did I say?
You said superintendent of Clark, but I did retweet it, so I was a little confused.
Both of them. That's what I meant to say. Okay, and next we're going to move into policy. So Suzanne and John, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, so do you want to share the screen so everyone can look at it, or I'm not a host anymore, so someone can just share it.
We'll give you co-host. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Sorry, I have like so many screens open right now. Nope, that's not it. That is not it, you guys.
EBC-FA.
All right. Is that big enough for all you guys? or you're looking at your screen anyway. All right, so this is just another one of those policies we had to change because we changed the mask wearing policy. And so this policy just needed to reflect those changes. And if you can just see the comments on the side, I mean, the first comment was just the date was wrong. And then that second deletion there is just because it was just written twice, just a typo. And then Mrs. McCauley went through and just talked about what changes made sense. And there's nothing earth-shattering here. It's just the same change we had, that students no longer have to wear masks when they're outdoors, even when social distancing can't be maintained. And that's for recess, physical education, and any, outdoor learning activities. But everything stays the same right now inside of the school, except for the one change was that the staff in direct contact with students is it's not just it's they only have to wear those protective gears if a student is symptomatic. Before, we had them just wearing it to interact with students. So I think that was the only other change. You're mute.
That's the gear in addition to the masks, correct?
Yeah, because there's staff
'Cause
that it was primarily for staff that was working with students with special needs that were having, or preschool, like direct contact with, like that couldn't maintain 6 feet of social distancing or
Right.
3 when we changed it. So these are just routine changes that I think that this, as restrictions keep getting lessened, I think that we'll just keep changing these policies until we no longer have them.
Right.
So yeah, fingers crossed. So this is a first read. So you guys look it over again and just agree with the changes or not, and we can just vote on it next meeting.
Okay.
John, anything else? Sorry. Just
Nope, I'm good. I put my comments in.
Yep. Appreciate that. So that's it.
Okay. All right, so next I have the consent agenda. Moving right along. The consent agenda is
Right.
designed to expedite the handling of routine and miscellaneous business of the district. The school committee can adopt the entire consent agenda with one motion. At the request of any school committee member, any items can be removed from the consent agenda, placed on regular agenda for discussion. Tonight we have 4 things. We have our regular session minutes from May 12th. We have executive session minutes from May 12th. We have emergency meeting minutes from May 18th. That was the mask discussion. And then we have the warrant number 2146 and numbers 2147. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion?
Oh, wait a second, you guys. So the policy.
Hold on, before you go into policy, can we just
No.
finish?
No, because we have the approval of this EBC-FA. So
This is the same. Oh,
These are just for the minutes and the warrant.
But I think the first edits of this policy were part of the emergency meeting minutes. Is that what you're saying, Suzanne?
yeah,
And
Good
so,
point.
but now we're going back in and we're editing further. So I would see that as not a problem. That was
Okay.
the first edit under the emergency meeting. And now going back for the first read with additional edits is an entirely separate minutes.
Okay, so we'll vote on, so technically we could probably vote on this. Technically, this is our second read, or does the second read have to be in public?
I think it has to be in public.
Okay, that's what I was just.
Yeah.
All good.
So we took the emergency meeting to
Discuss that.
to lift the mask ban, to lift the mask requirements so that the kids didn't have to hold on for our meeting.
Right.
And now we've just done the first read. So we'll
Right.
do the second read. We'll approve it next week.
Yeah, you're right,
formally.
because we just sort of talked about what changes we'd have to make and then, right. Okay.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? Then we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Pastor,
Yes.
Ms. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Jantis.
Yes.
Sorry, my apologies. And I'm a yes. That is unanimous yes. And since it is 8 o'clock and we have zoomed through this meeting, no pun intended, I will open it up to public comments.
I'm looking. I see one person with their hand up.
I've just allowed that person, Keiko, to speak.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Keiko Zoll. Just wanted to thank Ms. Seibert for her awesome presentation tonight. It's just really helpful to see where kind of how the money's been spent and plans for where it is being spent, or hopefully where it will be spent. The one thing that I just kind of wanted to bring into public comment tonight is that as part of ESSER 3, this most recent round through the American Rescue Plan Act, there is a requirement from DESE that there needs to be stakeholder engagement around how these plans are developed. And so that's including students and families, obviously school and district administrators, teachers, building staff. They also specifically call out civil rights organizations, and also making sure that children with disabilities, English learners, children experiencing homelessness, children and youth in foster care, migratory students, and justice-involved youth are also represented in that planning. And so I'm just, I realize there's a lot of work that's ahead to, really plan this out for the money from the government. So just looking forward to seeing what that stakeholder engagement plan will look like over the coming months. Thanks.
I don't see anyone else.
All right, then.
Ms. Seibert has her hand up.
Oh, Ms. Seibert, go ahead.
I just want to say that I'm signed up for the webinar tomorrow with DESE to go over ESSER 3 and the requirements, and I am aware of what Ms. Soul just outlined. I just didn't dive that deep into the presentation, but there's an opportunity for a seminar with DESE tomorrow, and then there's another one again in June. So we will definitely adhere to the guidelines and guidance put forth in the grant.
Mr. Chantis, you have your hand up?
Thanks, Amy. I forgot to mention something during community announcements. I just take a moment just to recognize the middle school Memorial Day family commemoration event. My grandmother was a Gold Star mother, and so Memorial Day has special significance for our family. So again, I just wanted to recognize that. I thought it was terrific that they were doing that. Thank you.
I got that memo as well, but I confess I don't have the details of it. Is there anything you wanted to share so that people? I'm putting you on the spot here.
So the school has asked for just information about the fallen heroes to be provided. So they're going to put a flag in front of the school with that person's name, just to recognize that person. So I would say contact the middle school if you wanted to participate in that event.
Thanks.
Wow. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Pastor.
Well,
on
with
the-
3
Mr.
meetings today.
I know, we've seen a lot of each other very early in the morning and
So I suppose I shouldn't feel guilty about a 1 hour meeting then, since we have already met for 2 hours today. Okay, so Mr. Pastor was the second. Roll call vote. Mr. Jantis,
Yes.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Ms. Marshall,
Yes.
Mr. Pastor,
yes.
and I'm a yes. It is 8:07 and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.